What's up, guys? Today we're going to talk about endless summer syndrome and why I think that endless summer syndrome is really ruining your health and taking a toll on your body and mental state. So, what is endless summer syndrome? Endless summer syndrome is what I call for your body constantly thinking that it is summertime outside. Your body has lost the sense of time and lost signaling from the environment, so it always thinks it's summer, meaning it's always going to crave carbohydrates and it's always going to store fat to prepare for winter, which is famine. So let's talk about how this endless summer syndrome is caused in your body, and then we'll talk about how to fix it. So first off, the main reason endless summer syndrome is caused in today's modern world is because of artificial lights. Artificial blue lights, we're being bathed in them and they're all around us, whether that be LED lights on top of us, on our heads, on the ceiling, or our phone screens, computer screens, and TV screens. So when you look at artificial light and you keep the lights on all night, that's going to make your body think that it's in a state of summer, because during summer, the sun sets much later, it's light outside for much longer than it is dark. So if you keep the lights on all night, your body's constantly going to think it's summer. During winter, when the sun sets, all lights are supposed to be off. You're not supposed to be exposed to any light during winter. So do we do this? No, we do the opposite of this. We're bathed in artificial lights all night, and that not only ruins our body's ability to tell what season and what time it is, but it also suppresses melatonin secretion and we can't sleep properly. And not sleeping properly is the start of forming tons of Neolithic diseases. Not sleeping properly can cause heart disease, cardiovascular disease, loss of immune function. You're not able to regulate your hormones properly and can even increase the risk of cancer. So let's continue with endless summer syndrome. You keep the lights on all night and all day even. You're bathing in artificial blue lights. And what that does, besides ruin your sleep, is artificial light, specifically blue light in isolation, spikes your cortisol. And when your cortisol is constantly spiked from artificial lights, and just to say this, a study done by Cornell University, and some other studies have been done, I'll make sure to link them, show that when you shine if someone is placed in a room of complete darkness and just a small flashlight of light the size of a quarter is shined on the back of their knee, that's going to increase their cortisol. That's going to increase their body temperature, spike their cortisol, and decrease melatonin secretion. They're not going to be able to secrete melatonin properly. So just from that little light, you get a spike of blood sugar and cortisol. So imagine what happens when you're bathed in artificial lights all night. So now back to you're bathed in artificial lights all night. That's going to raise your cortisol, which in turn raises your blood sugar. When your blood sugar is constantly raised, that's going to raise your insulin. Now your insulin's constantly being spiked, and when your insulin spikes, you're always going to feel hungry. You're going to want to overeat, and you're going to become insulin resistant. Insulin resistant over time leads to type 2 diabetes, and type 2 diabetes is becoming much more prominent in our modern world. And the reason is because of artificial lights and how artificial lights lead to insulin resistance. And insulin resistance over time is going to cause type 2 diabetes, among other issues such as obesity. So now you constantly have artificial lights on, you're becoming insulin resistant, you're always under stress because you have high cortisol from the artificial lights. On top of that, now your body's going to think it's summer, and because of the insulin resistance, it's going to always crave carbs. And by always craving carbs and eating carbs, that's going to make the insulin resistance even worse. And on top of it, in the winter, if you live in a place where it's very cold during winter and the ground freezes, nothing's going to be able to grow. So now if you're eating carbohydrates during that time, those carbohydrates that you buy at the grocery store are imported from probably the equator or much closer south than where you are to the equator. And these foods are going to be loaded with deuterium because they come from more south / closer to the equator. And without UV light during winter, your body cannot handle or process this deuterium, and it's going to cause your mitochondria to not function properly. And mitochondria functioning properly is the key to preventing all Neolithic diseases and living longer and aging properly. The better mitochondria you have that function properly, the longer you're going to live. So again, eating these deuterium loaded foods during winter or tropical foods like bananas in the winter is going to very much cause defect and affect your mitochondria and cause inflammation within your body. So now, not only do you have artificial lights on throughout the night, you're becoming insulin resistant, which is leading to possibly type 2 diabetes and obesity. You're also eating carbohydrates out of season, which is going to affect your mitochondria. And then again, now artificial lights, eating carbohydrates, insulin resistance is telling your body that it's famine, that it needs to store fat for the winter, which is going to cause you constantly gaining fat. And this is why we see so much obesity in the modern society. So now, what do all these three things lead to? They lead to your body losing a sense of time. When your body loses its circadian rhythm and its endogenous clock, that is terrible. You need a proper sense of time to know what's going on and for your body to function properly. Without a properly functioning circadian clock in your body, you are much more susceptible to all types of diseases. And then on top of that, now you lost sense of time. So without a sense of time, you can no longer sleep properly. You're going to not have proper sleep levels. And as we see, many people in the United States alone say how they suffer from not being able to sleep. And not being able to sleep leads to even more diseases. Increase of risk of cancer, heart disease, cardiovascular disease, all these things. So that's why endless summer syndrome is so bad. Because if your body constantly thinks it's summer, it thinks it could go to bed later, and it thinks it could eat all these carbohydrates, and it thinks it could be insulin resistant to prepare for the famine in winter, because you're not supposed to be eating carbohydrates during winter, only proteins and fats. So really only animal foods, proteins and fats during winter. So that's why back in the day, when we would be preparing for winter, we would eat as much carbohydrates or fruits that we could, because we needed to get as much as we could. The humans that stored enough carbohydrates during the summer, during the end of the summer, were able to survive the winter. Those who did not ended up dying or freezing to death. So that's why our body thinks if it's constantly summer, we need to keep storing all these carbs as fat. And again, that's going to lead to insulin resistance and eventually leptin resistance. So now that you know what endless summer syndrome is and how it could be affecting you and really being detrimental to your health, let's talk about how to fix the endless summer syndrome and how to reset your body's circadian clock. How do you get your body's ability to tell time back? Well, first of all, you do this. Every single morning you wake up at sunrise and you see the sunrise. Even if it's cloudy, you're still getting light on your skin and on your body. If there was no light shining through the clouds, it would be completely dark outside, but that's not the case. So you're still getting light on your body, and that's going to help reset your circadian clock. It's 50 to 200 times more brighter outside than inside. So get outside and see the sunrise every single morning. That's going to be an anchor that's going to set your circadian clock and set your circadian rhythm. So get outside. Never miss a single sunrise. On top of it, at sunrise, most of the wavelengths of light are infrared and UV light. And it's mostly infrared. And infrared is the most healing to our body. Our mitochondria need infrared and UV light to charge their battery and function properly. So get outside at sunrise. The next step, just spend as much time as you can outside and limit all artificial light, even during the day, but especially at night. As soon as the sun goes down, you should not be exposed to any artificial light. I know in the modern world that's impossible. So here are my tips to how to limit your exposure to artificial light. As soon as the sun goes down, dim the lights and cover your skin and wear blue light blockers. Why I don't say just to wear blue light blockers is because there's not just photoreceptors in your eyes, there's also photoreceptors in your skin. So even if you're blocking your eyes, the photoreceptors on your skin are still going to tell your body and transmit melanopsin signaling to your SCN, suprachiasmatic nucleus in your brain, which tells your body that it sees the light and what time it is. So you need to cover your skin and wear blue light blockers if you're exposed to artificial light. But what you should do instead is just turn down the lights or dim the lights as much as possible at night. What I do is I use a red light reading lamp and I walk around the house with that red light reading lamp because it's not emitting any blue light and it's flicker free. So At night, I walk around and only use that for light. And you might say, well, what do I do at night? How am I supposed to function properly if I'm only using this light? What do I do? Well, the things that I do at night is I start to calm down for sleep. So I read, I listen to podcasts without looking at my phone. I meditate to help calm my mind and get ready for sleep, and I spend time with my family. Those are the best things to do at night. And I do that all using the red light reading lamp. I try to keep no lights on at night, and especially during the day, keep no lights on. Keep the windows open during the day because the windows block almost all of the UV and infrared light from the sun. So keep the windows open so you get some of that light in. So now you know you need to be outside as much as you can, see the sunrise every single morning to reset your circadian clock, and then you need to limit artificial lights. Because again, every time you're exposed to artificial light, your cortisol is going to spike and your blood sugar is going to spike and your insulin is going to spike, making you more hungry. That's why eating outside actually lowers your blood sugar, because the sun lowers your blood sugar from the infrared light. Infrared light is like a counter to blue light. It does the opposite effect. So that's why it's very important. Also, another tip, eat your meals outside. Eating meals outside is going to lower your blood sugar because you're in the sunlight. Another important thing when it comes to resetting your circadian clock and your body's ability to tell time is to try to always eat when it's light outside. So that means in the winter you should be having an earlier dinner because you do not want to be eating once it's dark outside. Our ancestors did not do that. No one in nature eats when it's dark outside. So prioritize that as well. And then now the next point of resetting your circadian clock is seasonal and local eating. You want to eat as much local and seasonal food as possible. You do not want to eat foods out of season that aren't local. When winter comes, you should only be eating proteins and fats. If you're from a place where nothing grows in the winter in your environment, then you should not be buying those things at the stores or consuming them, because they're going to be high in deuterium and they're going to trick your body into thinking that it's summer because of all the insulin that you're going to be getting, and it's going to want to store this as fat. Your body can function properly without carbohydrates in the winter. It could function perfectly fine on the fats. In the winter, your body's supposed to run on the fatty acids, the free fatty acids. So prioritize protein and fat in the winter. Do not eat carbohydrates. But if you come from a warmer climate where things are still growing in the winter, like you come from the southern United States where citrus fruits are still growing and other tropical fruits are growing, or you come from South America or Central America, then that's completely fine to eat those fruits because they're local and those carbohydrates are local and in season, so that's fine. But if you come from a place where the ground freezes and nothing grows in the winter, only eat proteins and fats. Now you might say to me, Giuseppe, how am I not supposed to eat carbohydrates? I'm so used to eating it, my body craves carbohydrates. Well, if you're craving carbohydrates, you're doing something wrong. That means you're not getting outside enough and you're not getting cold exposure. This leads me to my next point, cold exposure during winter. If your maternal lineage is from a place where the ground freezes, cold exposure is key and you 1,000% need to be doing it. Cold exposure is going to suppress your want for carbohydrates. If you're getting outside and you're exposed to the cold, it's going to make you crave fats. You won't be craving carbohydrates. So the more you get outside and the more cold exposure you have, the more you're going to not crave carbohydrates and you're going to start to crave fat. And you might say, well, why is cold exposure so important? Isn't it spiking my cortisol and that's bad for me in the long run? The reason is cold exposure actually makes your mitochondria work more efficiently. It's going to tunnel electrons faster, and this is going to make your mitochondria work more efficiently. And the reason for this is let's say it's the summer, you're outside tanning in the high UV, that's going to produce alpha MSH in your body. It's going to increase alpha MSH. The proof of cold exposure working is that cold exposure increases UV light and infrared light in your mitochondria. Your mitochondria has to heat up to warm your body. And the proof of this is alpha MSH increases during summer when you have high UV sunlight on your skin. Now, when you do cold exposure, studies show that alpha MSH is increased drastically. So that means you're getting UV light and infrared light from doing cold exposure, which is going to charge your mitochondria. So you need to do that to function properly during the winter. And again, the more cold exposure you do, the less you're going to crave carbohydrates. If you're craving carbohydrates, you need to be doing cold exposure. But again, you just have to stay disciplined. Don't go to the grocery store and buy all these tropical foods that are going to be high in deuterium and they're going to cause your body to not know what season it is. So those are my main tips for how to reset your body's clock and make sure your body's endogenous clock is running smoothly and properly. If a loss of sense of time in your body means that diseases are going to start to come because your body can't tell what time it is, you always want to know what time it is. So just to recap, never miss a single sunrise. Get outside every single morning, see the sunrise. Spend as much time as you can outside, even in the winter. Cold exposure is key for mitochondrial function in the winter. To have functioning mitochondria and to be healthy during winter, you need cold exposure to create UV and infrared light. And then on top of that, you want to only eat proteins and fats during the winter. You do not want to be eating carbohydrates that are not in season if you're from a place where the ground freezes and nothing can grow. And then most importantly, you want to avoid and limit all artificial light as much as possible, because any artificial light shined on your skin or through your eyes is going to increase your blood sugar and spike your insulin, which is again going to make you crave more food and keep you hungry. So limit artificial light as much as you can. Turn the lights off.